Hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. This is 6-Path Weeb, and I'm glad to have you here. Today's fanfiction episode is What if Naruko joined the War of Pantheons? Part 3. Before we begin, a quick disclaimer. Disclaimer: this content is created solely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not own any anime footage, images, music, or other copyrighted material used in this video. All rights and credits belong to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, without wasting any more time, let's dive straight into the story. Naruko Koi. Wake up. Stirring gently, Naruko began to wake to the soft, velvety voice whispering in her ear. When she opened her eyes, she looked up into the warm, moon-like eyes of her wife. Her head rested comfortably on Hinata's lap as they sat beneath a blooming sakura tree, its pink petals drifting peacefully through the gentle breeze. Oni-san. Hinata-chan? Naruko asked quietly as she sat up a little, gazing at her beloved wife with surprise. You're here. Hinata simply smiled. Instead of answering, she gently guided Naruko back down onto her lap. Naruko settled comfortably on the grassy hill beneath the sakura tree while Hinata lovingly brushed her fingers through her golden hair. Oni-san. Naruko opened her mouth to speak again, but Hinata placed a gentle kiss on her forehead before turning her gaze toward the bright horizon. Her fingers continued to stroke Naruko's hair, filling the peaceful moment with warmth. Oni-san. Eh? Dash. Oni-san. Oof. Naruko barely had time to react before a cheerful little bundle landed squarely on her stomach. Oni-san, it's time to wake up. After catching her breath, Naruko sat up and smiled at her energetic little sister, Scylla. Although Scylla was small, she somehow always managed to feel much heavier than she looked. All right already, Scylla-chan, Naruko laughed. Just give me a moment to get dressed. Scylla happily slithered out of the room while humming to herself. Maybe one day I'll figure out whether she actually has feet, Naruko wondered with an amused smile. A few moments later, Naruko stepped into the living room while adjusting her gloves. She noticed Fenrir comfortably stretched across the couch, reading a book. With a playful grin, Naruko folded her arms. Fenrir, remember the blanket? Oh. Fenrir looked down sheepishly. Right. He quickly spread a cozy blanket over the couch before lying back down. There, he said proudly. Much better, Naruko replied with a smile. She glanced at the book in his paws. The Legend of Man, huh? It's a fun adventure story, Fenrir answered happily. I'll have to borrow it sometime. Scylla giggled from her chair. Silly doggy. Fenrir laughed. I've been called worse. Naruko chuckled. Come on, everyone. We should go meet Geb. Taking Scylla's hand, the three friends headed toward the cafeteria. Dash. Compared with everyone else Naruko had met, becoming friends with Geb had been wonderfully simple. One day they had shared a meal together. The next day they talked some more. Soon they were exchanging stories, books, and laughter whenever they met. Hello, Rockhead, Fenrir called cheerfully. Naruko blinked. When did I get pancakes? She wondered aloud. Everyone laughed. Across the table, Geb happily enjoyed his favorite stone meal. So, Geb, Naruko asked, how are things today? Very well, Naruko-san, Geb replied in his deep, rumbling voice. My wife enjoyed the books. I'm glad, Naruko said brightly. I'll bring more next time. Before long, Naruko had introduced many of her new friends to manga and animated stories from her homeland. Everyone seemed eager to discover exciting adventures and heartwarming tales. My wife also likes history books, Geb added. I'll remember that. Dash. Later that day everyone gathered to watch the friendly tournament. Geb and Scylla made a wonderful team. Geb protected everyone with sturdy stone walls while Scylla cleverly planned each move with surprising creativity. When the match ended, Scylla hopped onto the practice platform and raised her arms proudly. "I'm queen of the castle." Everyone applauded. "Hey, Fenrir," Naruko said. "Yeah? I think Scylla has become amazingly talented." "I'd say so." Just then, Oni-san. Oof. For the second time that day, Scylla launched herself into a joyful hug. "I won? Did you see? Did you? Did you?" "I certainly did," Naruko laughed. Geb gently lifted Scylla off Naruko before she accidentally squished her again. "Thanks, Geb." The Earth Giant smiled warmly. Naruko patted Scylla's bright red hair. "Now, Scylla, do you remember what tonight is?" Scylla tapped her chin thoughtfully. "Training? Good guess." She thought even harder. Her eyes suddenly sparkled. "Movie night." "That's right." With an excited cheer, Scylla hurried toward Naruko's room to help prepare. The others followed at a relaxed pace. "What do you think she'll choose?" Naruko asked. Fenrir laughed. "As long as everyone gets popcorn, I'm happy." Geb nodded. "Popcorn is delicious." Naruko smiled. "I couldn't agree more." Dash. As they walked through the hallway, two familiar voices greeted them. "Good afternoon," said Arachne with a graceful smile. "And hello," Medusa added politely. "Hello, Arachne." "Hello, Medusa," Geb rumbled. Fenrir waved. Naruko smiled warmly. "It's nice to see both of you." Arachne stepped forward with friendly curiosity. "Naruko, you've made friends with many people here." "I've been lucky," Naruko replied. "You always seem willing to help others," Medusa observed. Naruko scratched the back of her head with a small laugh. "I just like meeting new friends." Arachne smiled. "That's exactly why we wished to speak with you." Naruko tilted her head. "And what would you like to talk about?" she asked kindly. A soft laugh escaped Arachne as she folded her hands together. "My point, my dear," she said kindly, "is that we have never quite fit in with the other gods. Sometimes it feels as though they make all the rules without listening to anyone else. We know what it is like to feel overlooked, and we think you understand that feeling too. We have all faced difficult days, including our friend Scylla." Naruko smiled thoughtfully. "I know what it's like to feel different," she replied. "But I also believe everyone deserves a chance to make new friends." Arachne's eyes brightened. "So, what would you say to teaching two unusual goddesses who are eager to learn?" "Can't." "What?" Arachne blinked in surprise. "Why not?" Naruko scratched the back of her head with an apologetic smile. "Game night." Fenrir tilted his head. "Game night?" "Game night," Naruko repeated with a cheerful nod. Arachne looked at Medusa. "Game? Night?" For a long moment, no one said a word. Finally, Naruko spread her hands. "Would you both like to join us?" The two goddesses exchanged uncertain glances. Dash. Fenrir gently guided Naruko aside. "Naruko," he whispered, "are you sure about inviting them?" Naruko folded her arms. "I think so. They're mysterious." "So were you." Fenrir sighed. "I still think this could be complicated." Naruko smiled. "I see something important in them." "What?" "The same thing I saw in you." Fenrir raised an eyebrow. "They've been lonely." The great wolf was quiet for a moment before giving a small smile. "Well? When you put it that way." Dash. Naruko hurried back toward Arachne and Medusa. So, where are you two heading? We were planning to return to our rooms, Medusa answered politely. It seemed you had already made your decision. I have, Naruko said. Both goddesses waited. I'd love for you to join our little group. Arachne blinked. Really? Of course. The more friends we have, the more fun game night becomes. The two looked at one another before smiling. We would be honored, Medusa replied. Great. Naruko cheered. Come on. Scylla will be so excited to meet you. She happily led the way, with everyone following behind. Fenrir caught up beside Geb, who walked as steadily as ever. I'm still not sure about this, Fenrir admitted. Geb nodded thoughtfully. Sometimes good friendships begin with small invitations. Fenrir chuckled. You always know how to keep things simple. Dash. As soon as Naruko opened the door, a cheerful voice echoed through the room. Big sister. Scylla rushed over and wrapped Naruko in a joyful hug. Hey, Scylla. Naruko laughed. Did you pick a game? I did. Scylla announced proudly, holding a colorful board game above her head. Fenrir grinned. Now that's something everyone can enjoy. Arachne looked curiously at the box. I've never played one before. Neither have I, Medusa admitted. Then tonight is the perfect night to learn, Naruko said warmly. Everyone gathered around the table. There was laughter, friendly conversation, and plenty of surprises as the game began. Before long, even Arachne and Medusa were smiling and cheering alongside their new friends. For the first time in a long while, everyone felt like they truly belonged. Dash. Meanwhile, deep inside a crystal cave, a group of brave adventurers worked together to solve one final challenge. Oh! Stephanie exclaimed as a large clockwork guardian accidentally bumped Sir Calabyne backward. Are you all right? She asked. I'm fine, Calabyne replied, brushing a little dust from his clothes. That certainly was unexpected. The mechanical guardian whirred loudly, its gears spinning as it continued to guard the treasure room. Officer Venjo stepped forward with a confident smile. Everyone, remember what we've practiced. Teamwork. Stephanie nodded and quickly used a gentle healing spell that filled the room with warm, golden light. I feel much better already, Calabyne said. Excellent. Venjo replied. Now let's solve this together. The heroes carefully watched the Guardian's movements. Working side by side, they discovered a glowing switch hidden behind one of the crystal pillars. I found it. Stephanie called. Calabyne pressed the switch. With a cheerful chime, the Guardian's glowing eye changed from red to bright blue. The machine bowed politely before rolling aside to reveal the exit. We did it! Stephanie cheered. Venjo laughed proudly. I knew teamwork would win the day. The friends left the cave together, excited to begin their next adventure. With your task completed, your party earned 300 gold and 5 experience points, came the gravelly voice of Geb the dungeon master. The party of Fenrir, Scylla, and Naruko cheered as their treasure was divided and each of their gold counters rose by 100. Who? We won? Fenrir exclaimed. Yes, but it would have been much faster if you hadn't rolled a 2 every time you needed to dodge, Scylla replied with a teasing grin. Seriously, what kind of ranger are you? Hey! Fenrir protested. You're one to talk. You lost your laberjack halfway through the mission. That wasn't my fault. Gobber sold me a faulty drill bit, Scylla shot back as she reached for a bag of chips. The lot of them are hopeless, Medusa, Arachne sighed dramatically as she stretched across a beanbag chair. If not for the Shinto's training, we never would have crossed paths with such amusing fools. She glanced around the room. Medusa? Medusa? Lifting herself from the surprisingly comfortable beanbag, Arachne searched until she spotted the end of a snake tail sticking out from behind a bookshelf. Curious, she walked over and discovered her longtime companion quietly reading one of the colorful picture books. Judging by the growing stack beside her, Medusa had been reading for quite some time. "Medusa, what are you doing?" Arachne asked. "Nothing. Nothing at all," Medusa replied quickly, trying to hide the books behind her tail. "I simply wanted somewhere peaceful." Before Arachne could ask another question, the cheerful blonde called out. "Hey, you two. Want to join the next game?" Naruko held up two unusual-looking controllers connected by cords to a small purple game console. After a moment's thought, Arachne sighed. "Very well. How does one play with this curious device?" She carefully held the controller between her fingers as though it were something wonderfully strange. By the time everyone decided to call it a night, one thing had become perfectly clear. Being able to weave webs and having 8 legs did not make Arachne any better at Super Mario Strikers. Scylla's quick reflexes proved impossible to match. Still, Arachne had to admit the games were enjoyable. Especially whenever her team scored. Or whenever she managed to bump Fenrir's character into the electric fence. Eventually everyone headed off to bed. Scylla stayed in one of the guest rooms, while Naruko remained behind to tidy up. As she gathered the game cases, she paused. Who borrowed volumes 8 through 15 of Rosario plus Vampire? The dormitories were peaceful. No gods, beasts, humans, or anything in between stirred from their sleep. The kitchen had grown quiet after serving countless meals throughout the day. It was one of those calm nights where everything seemed perfectly still. Until... Ow! Naruko rubbed her side with a small wince. These chakra gates can be troublesome sometimes. After many years of training, her chakra network occasionally became difficult to manage whenever she went too long without exercising. It wasn't dangerous, but every now and then it caused a brief, uncomfortable ache. "I wonder if Sage Jinji ever dealt with this," she murmured. Once the feeling passed, she tried returning to bed. No luck. With a sigh, she looked over at the clock. 3:01 a.m. I suppose sleep isn't happening tonight. Smiling to herself, she climbed out of bed. Time for a bowl of ramen. After slipping on a pair of comfortable pants over her pajamas, Naruko quietly stepped into the hallway. As she passed the guest rooms, she paused outside Scylla's door. The young girl had been far too sleepy after winning every game to return home. "Just one quick peek," Naruko whispered. Moving as quietly as only a skilled shinobi could, she gently opened the door. Inside, soft light from a fox-shaped nightlight filled the room. Scylla was tossing gently in her sleep while her loyal dogs rested in their baskets near the foot of the bed. Carefully stepping around them, Naruko approached. She gently rested the back of her hand against Scylla's forehead. Almost immediately, the little girl's expression relaxed. With a warm smile, Naruko adjusted the blanket, making sure Scylla was comfortable before tucking her in once more. Finally, she leaned down and softly kissed her forehead. "Sweet dreams." Scylla smiled peacefully in her sleep. As Naruko turned to leave, she found herself face to face with 6 pairs of wide, curious puppy eyes. The dogs blinked at her expectantly. Naruko chuckled. "I suppose everyone wants to be tucked in." A few moments later, every dog was comfortably settled beneath their blankets. Only then did Naruko continue toward the kitchen. The cafeteria was closed for the night, meaning she would have to prepare her own ramen. Thankfully, she had learned from one of the very best. Soon a warm bowl of Tucci's famous ramen recipe rested in front of her. She dimmed most of the lights and sat down to enjoy the quiet. Click! One final light faded. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed a graceful figure glide silently into the room. Naruko calmly took another sip of broth. "So," she said with a smile, "are you planning to stand there all night, Or would you like to sit down? Gentle laughter echoed through the room like a beautiful song. Soft blue light slowly illuminated the darkness. Standing before her was an elegant woman carrying a floating candelabra surrounded by cool blue flames. Naruko blinked. That's quite an entrance. The mysterious woman smiled. Isn't it rather late for a meal? Naruko laughed. And isn't it rather dark to be wearing a mask? The woman covered a quiet giggle with one gloved hand. I suppose you have a point. So, what's your name? She gracefully set the floating candelabra above the table before taking a seat. I am Nox, Greek goddess of the night. Naruko smiled warmly. I'm Naruko Uzumaki. It's nice to meet you, Nox. May I join you? Of course. Would you like some tea? And maybe some ramen? Nox nodded thoughtfully. That sounds delightful. A few minutes later, Naruko returned carrying a tray with a teapot, 2 cups, and 2 bowls of steaming ramen. Nox looked at the larger bowl with surprise. Surely you aren't planning to eat all of that? Naruko grinned. For me, this is just a midnight snack. Nox laughed softly. I'll believe you. The two shared tea and ramen together in the peaceful silence of the sleeping dormitory. When Nox struggled to hold the chopsticks properly, Naruko gently showed her how to position her fingers. Like this, she said kindly. Nox smiled brightly. I think I've got it now. There you go. The warm meal, quiet conversation, and peaceful night made for an unexpected beginning to a new friendship. This is delicious. The goddess happily enjoyed the warm bowl of noodles, smiling with every bite. Naruko watched with a cheerful grin, pleased that her guests liked the meal so much. Looks like this really is food fit for the gods, she said with a laugh. So, is anyone else awake this late? The blonde asked as she returned to her own bowl of noodles. Oh, yes, Nox replied after taking a sip of fragrant jasmine tea. Many gods prefer the quiet hours of the night. It is a peaceful time for thinking and watching over the world. That sounds nice, Naruko said. The stars do make everything feel calm. They certainly do, Nox answered warmly. When the meal was finished, Naruko gathered the empty bowls. It was wonderful meeting you, Nox-san, she said with a smile. We should share another meal sometime. I have training tomorrow, so I'd better get some sleep. I would like that very much, Nox replied kindly. Naruko nodded. My door is usually open if you'd ever like to stop by for tea or another bowl of ramen. I'll remember that, Nox said as she watched the cheerful young woman head toward her room. The peaceful home soon grew quiet as everyone settled in for the night. The next morning, Naruko stretched and yawned. I still feel sleepy, she murmured. Although she had incredible energy, staying up later than usual always made mornings a little more difficult. Still, she smiled and got ready for another day of teaching. As she walked through the hallway with Fenrir, she rubbed the back of her head. I really should have gone to bed earlier. Fenrir chuckled. You'll wake up once training starts. Hopefully, Naruko replied with a grin. Just then, a gentle tug on her sleeve made her stop. Looking down, she saw Scylla gazing up with bright blue eyes. Big sister, are you upset? The little girl asked softly. Naruko's tired expression immediately melted into a warm smile. Not at all, Scylla, she said as she lifted the child into a gentle hug. I'm just a little sleepy today. Scylla smiled. Then don't forget to smile too. I'll do my best. After setting her back down, Naruko turned toward Fenrir. Sorry if I sounded grumpy earlier. Fenrir laughed. No worries. We all have sleepy mornings. Thanks. Together, the four friends continued toward the training hall. Inside, they found Arachne and another queen waiting beside the practice equipment. It seems everyone arrived on time, Arachne observed. Naruko smiled confidently. I always keep my promises. She looked toward Scylla. Why don't you start with some light strength exercises? Remember, slow and steady. Scylla happily nodded and began practicing with the training equipment under careful supervision. Naruko then faced the others. The rest of us will head to the practice ring. Fenrir tilted his head. I thought today was all about teaching us. It is, Naruko answered. You'll be practicing together while I watch. That way I can see everyone's strengths and what each of you can improve. That makes sense, Fenrir replied. Arachne folded her arms. Will you be joining us? Naruko smiled. If everyone is comfortable with it, I'd be happy to demonstrate a few techniques. Remember, today's goal isn't to win, it's to learn from one another. The others nodded. Fenrir stepped forward, holding the small practice gong they used to begin friendly matches. Everyone ready? The 3 participants nodded with bright smiles. Fenrir raised the mallet. Guong. The clear sound echoed through the gym as the friendly training session began, filled with teamwork, laughter, and the excitement of learning together. The gong echoed across the field as Fenrir stepped behind the sturdy walking blast shield while the competitors quietly studied one another. The wolf and the living rock watched from a safe distance. So, how do you think this match is going to go? Fenrir asked. Big. Surprise, Geb replied thoughtfully. Fenrir chuckled. Yeah, but it's 2 against 1. Quiet. Match. Starting. Across the arena, Arachne folded her arms with a confident smile. What's the matter, little goddess? She teased. Lost your courage? Beside her, Medusa calmly lifted her enchanted bow. Naruko, the cheerful blonde ninja, simply smiled. She stood still, carefully watching both of her opponents without saying a word. Humph, Arachne continued. I expected a much more dramatic entrance from a hero. Before she could finish, Naruko suddenly dashed forward with incredible speed. In the blink of an eye, she reached Arachne and gave the Spider Queen a playful tap that gently sent her spinning backward across the arena. Without slowing down, Naruko gracefully sidestepped one of Medusa's glowing arrows. With a quick flick of her wrist, 3 practice kunai sailed through the air toward the archer. Medusa answered with 3 magical arrows of her own. Clang! The harmless training weapons bumped into one another, scattering sparkling light across the arena. Naruko caught one of the falling practice kunai without missing a step and continued forward. Medusa glided sideways as several of the tiny snakes in her hair released a splash of glowing green magic. Poof! Instead of hitting Naruko, the spell struck a wooden log. What? Medusa gasped. Before she could look around, she felt a gentle tug at the end of her tail. Naruko had pinned the very tip of it to the ground with a soft practice arrow. Oops, Naruko said with a grin. Just slowing you down for a second. She hurried along Medusa's tail, hoping to tag her with another training kunai. Suddenly something sticky wrapped around the back of her jacket. A strand of web. Naruko looked over her shoulder to see Arachne smiling. Found you. The web stretched tight, lifting Naruko into the air before gently flinging her across the arena. She landed safely in a soft cloud of dust and quickly rolled back onto her feet. I must admit, Arachne said, brushing herself off, you're quicker than I expected. Medusa nodded. Let's work together. Naruko laughed as she dusted off her sleeves. You two sure know how to welcome a guest. Just then, 2 oversized magical spiderlings scampered toward her. With 2 careful flicks of her practice kunai, Naruko pinned their tiny capes to the ground instead of hurting them. There you go, she said kindly. Time out for both of you. My, Arachne said dramatically. How could you embarrass my little helpers? She waved a hand toward Medusa. Your turn. Medusa released another glowing arrow. As it flew, magical green light wrapped around it, forming the shape of a shining serpent. Naruko quickly formed hand signs. Lightning style, giant wave. A brilliant beam of harmless lightning burst forward, dissolving the magical serpent into sparkling lights before gently surrounding Medusa with crackling energy. The electricity fizzled like bright fireworks, causing Medusa to wobble dizzily before landing safely on a soft patch of grass. Medusa. Arachne called. You shouldn't look away from your opponent, Naruko said. A cool mist gathered around her hand until it shimmered with sparkling ice. Ice style, frost hammer. She lightly tapped Arachne's shield, sending a burst of icy wind that gently pushed the Spider Queen backward until she bumped into Medusa. The two friends landed in a fluffy heap. Naruko couldn't help smiling. From the sidelines came a loud voice. Boo! That joke wasn't very good. Fenrir cupped his paws around his mouth. Bad joke, Geb agreed, holding up a flat stone with 5.9 carved into it. Naruko sighed dramatically. You two are impossible. She tossed a tiny snowball made from leftover ice magic. It bounced off Geb's shoulder before lightly tapping Fenrir on the nose. The wolf blinked in surprise while Geb chuckled. Turning back toward her opponents, Naruko smiled warmly. So, shall we keep playing, or would you like to call it a draw? Arachne and Medusa exchanged determined looks. One more round. Colorful magical auras shimmered around them. Naruko stretched her fingers. All right then. Let's make this fun. She dashed forward. The arena filled with glowing arrows, harmless webs, sparkling bubbles of magic, and bouncing trick spells. Naruko leapt, twirled, ducked, and spun with graceful ninja agility, weaving through every colorful obstacle as though she were dancing. She reached Medusa first. With one quick swipe, she neatly snipped the string of Medusa's magical bow. Oh! Medusa exclaimed. It'll grow back in a few seconds, Naruko said cheerfully. No worries. Using the edge of Medusa's shield as a springboard, Naruko bounced toward Arachne. At that exact moment, one of Arachne's playful little spiderlings accidentally landed on Medusa's shoulder. Eek! Not now. Medusa laughed. Naruko giggled. Looks like somebody wants another hug. Arachne crossed her arms just in time to block Naruko's next playful tag. Their practice claws gently tapped together with a cheerful clang. You certainly never stop smiling, Arachne admitted. My teacher always said smiling helps you think, Naruko replied. The two exchanged quick, careful practice moves, each trying to outsmart the other without anyone getting hurt. Finally, Arachne grinned. Now, Medusa. Medusa removed her magical mask. A brilliant emerald light spread across the arena. Cover your eyes. Fenrir shouted, pulling Geb behind the blast shield. Naruko smiled beneath her forehead protector. Instead of looking directly at the light, she lowered the protector over her eyes and listened carefully. She heard Medusa's footsteps. She felt the breeze. Then, whoosh! A shadow clone appeared above. So there you are. The real Naruko and her clone twirled together. Wind style, gentle side breeze. A pair of swirling gusts circled around Medusa, lifting away the glowing magic until it dissolved into harmless sparkles. The clone disappeared in a puff of smoke. Medusa blinked. You figured it out. Naruko laughed. Sometimes your ears are just as important as your eyes. Arachne looked at her friend, then back at Naruko. After a moment, both monster girls smiled. You win. The arena filled with applause. Naruko bowed politely before walking over to Fenrir and Geb. She folded her arms with a proud grin. So? She waited dramatically. Wasn't that awesome? Fenrir scratched his chin. 7 out of 10. Geb quietly held up another stone. 6, 8. Naruko stared at them. Seriously? The two burst into laughter. Naruko laughed too, And before long all 5 competitors were smiling together, proving that a friendly match could end with new respect, shared laughter, and happy memories. With a soft groan, the 2 goddesses slowly began to wake. Arachne. What happened? And why do I feel so sleepy? Medusa murmured as she gently encouraged her little snakes to lift their heads. They lazily draped themselves across her shoulders and hair. Arachne blinked several times, trying to remember. I'm not sure. Weren't we practicing with Naruko? That's right, Medusa replied thoughtfully. A cheerful voice interrupted them. Correct. You challenged me because you wanted to see what I could do. We had our training match, I used one of my special techniques, and then... Naruko crouched down with a bright smile. You both took a very long nap. The 2 goddesses looked up in surprise. Oh! They exclaimed together. Naruko laughed warmly. Hi! After catching their breath, Arachne smiled sheepishly. You really are amazing. Medusa nodded. Even working together, we could hardly keep up. Naruko rubbed the back of her head with an embarrassed grin. Well, I've spent a long time practicing. For me, training has become second nature. Every day I try to learn something new instead of staying the same. That's why there's such a big difference right now. She gave them an encouraging smile. But that's perfectly okay. Everyone starts somewhere, and you'll both grow stronger with patience and practice. After all, that's why you came to train with me. The 2 friends exchanged determined glances before nodding together. Great! Naruko said happily as she began walking toward the path leading away from the training field. Now I want both of you to get plenty of rest. Tomorrow is the beginning of your real training adventure. Arachne blinked in surprise. Tomorrow? What about today's training? Naruko looked back over her shoulder. Today's already finished. You both became so tired after our practice that you fell fast asleep. The 2 stared at her in disbelief. Really? Naruko nodded. The recovery chambers here are designed to help your bodies rest after training. They let you wake up refreshed and ready to improve without overdoing it. It might feel unusual at first, but you'll get used to it. She waved with a bright, confident smile. Trust me. Get some good rest tonight, and tomorrow we'll have lots of fun learning together. As Naruko walked away, Medusa and Arachne watched her go. A tiny shiver of excitement ran through both of them. Tomorrow would be challenging. It would also be the first step toward becoming stronger together. We've certainly signed up for quite an adventure, Arachne whispered. Medusa smiled and nodded. And I can't wait to see what tomorrow brings. Dear YouTube family. That's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Your support means a lot and helps the channel grow. Thank you for watching. Regards. 6 Path Weeb.